Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. Those of you who have told me where you're joining us from in the chat, that's awesome. It's so exciting to see so many people here from all over. This is the Capital Storytelling live main event. So if you're here, you're in the right Zoom room. We're excited to have you here joining us. We have an amazing show tonight, right? So we want to first and foremost, we want to thank our sponsors, Capital Public Radio and the CCAC, which has actually provided closed captioning for this show. So if you would like to follow along with closed captioning, you can find that button at the bottom of the bar on your screen. Yeah. Excellent. My name is Betsaida LeBron. I will be your host, the MC for this evening, and just want to let you know, if this is your first Capital Storytelling event, welcome. We are so excited that you joined us this evening. And for those of you who have come to Cap Story events before, welcome back. Glad you're here. For just so that you know kind of what to expect for this evening, we have 5 storytellers who are going to be sharing their true and personal stories. The theme of this event, we have a live event, the main event, once every 3 months. So I've been waiting a long time for this, and I'm super, super excited that it's finally here. The theme this time is Lost in Translation, which, as we kind of put the show together, we realized was a pretty loose theme. Um, and kind of fitting that maybe the theme got a little bit lost in translation as we curated the show. But I think that the stories that we put together, that we're bringing for you to hear, are just incredible stories, incredible storytellers. And I can't wait for you to hear what they have to share tonight. So, a little bit about, actually, when we jump into that, our storytellers are here. So have everyone, if you can, turn your cameras on and just say hello, our storytellers. Excellent. So we're all here. Are we able to share? For the group, it looks like we're only seeing one person at a time. I don't know how that.
Hi, Betsaida. This is Vita saying hi.
Hello, hello. Okay, sorry. I don't. It's what I see. I don't know what like everyone else can see. Hopefully, you can see all the storytellers. We're gonna assume.
I think they can, Betsaida.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, people are throwing in the chats that you can see everyone. Okay, good. It was a test and you've all passed with flying colors. Also, just to prove that this is a live event, this isn't scripted or pre-recorded. Obviously, we are very live right now. So hi, storytellers! I'm so excited you're here. Hello, hello. So we are so pumped, and we'll see the storytellers in a little bit. So you can go ahead and turn your cameras back off. Perfect. So about capital storytelling and like why we do this, we just absolutely here at Capital Storytelling, our mission is to empower individuals by teaching them how to tell their own narratives, and in doing so, to foster empathy among those living in our city. And we're committed to diversity and inclusion, ensuring that all of our city's stories are heard. And so that is a really big part of our mission and what drives us and why we do what we do, is really to make sure that everyone is able to kind of share their stories, to feel empowered to do so, but most importantly, to be able to come together and to hear stories and to be able to connect and understand all different kinds of people through storytelling. And that's why this is so important to all of us who are here. Again, my name is Betsaida LeBron. I am the outreach director and also one of the story coaches with Capital Storytelling. And to learn more about this organization, if you haven't already, please check out capitalstorytelling.com. So thankful to you for being here. And we're just going to jump right into our very first storyteller. So our first storyteller is Barb Todd. And Barb is sharing a story entitled The Defining Moment. So, about Barb, you may notice the odd sorry, or a boot from Barb. Although she moved to the US 28 years ago, she is still proud to say she is Canadian. Barb and her friend moved to California on an RN contract and never left. Barb began her storytelling journey earlier this year and has loved getting to know the other storytellers through their amazing stories. So you can, give all your accolades in the comments for Barb. We just ask that during the storytelling that we don't use the chat feature, but after, please let her know that you enjoyed the story. So this is Barb Todd, The Defining Moment.
All right, thank you. So my story is in 1980. My family had just moved from Ontario to British Columbia, and I was about to start 6th grade. So I was a very awkward girl. But the funny thing is, I didn't actually realize I was an awkward girl because in Ontario, I really wasn't. I'd gone to school with the same kids since I was in kindergarten, and you sort of had friends. You didn't really make friends. You had all your friends at school, you had all your friends in your neighborhood, and you just didn't really give it much thought. None of the kids there really cared what you wore or what your hair looked like. You didn't even have to brush your hair. It was just very easy. So here we were moving to British Columbia. I'm about to start 6th grade, and I was extremely nervous. I could tell that the kids in this town did care about what you wore or what your hair looked like. So I talked to my mom and I said, I think I need a better haircut. So she took me to my aunt, who was a hairdresser, and I asked her for the Dorothy Hamill haircut. So for those of you who do not know what a Dorothy Hamill haircut is, it was kind of like a feathered bob, and it was very cool at the time. But my aunt told me that actually wasn't in style anymore, and the haircut I should get is actually called the shag. So just think about that for just a minute, and I think you could probably picture what a shag haircut might look like. So I got that haircut. It was not good, but there I was. First day of school, ugly brown glasses, crooked teeth, and my shag haircut. So there was another new girl in school that day, and her name was Justine. And I thought, okay, there's another new girl. Maybe her and I can be friends. And she had glasses, but her glasses were actually seemed a little cooler than mine. And I remember her having this big puffy vest that was really cool. And she had a Dorothy Hamill haircut. I'm not even kidding. So the cool kids saw her and she was scooped up right away. By the end of that first week of school, it was like she'd been at that school the entire time. I was not so lucky. I struggled. I wanted friends. I always had friends. I really didn't even know how to make friends. And I think, when you try too hard, that's absolutely the worst thing you can do. And I was trying. I desperately wanted friends. So a few months go by, and finally I do make some friends, Barb and Nancy. And I was so excited to have my little tribe, people to hang out with, people to walk around the school with, sit on the steps, have lunch with, do school projects with. If there was an assignment. Oh, I was so relieved. So Barb and Nancy were bus students, but I walked to school. So I would make sure I got up extra early so that I could be there when the bus got there. And I was waiting for my friends to get off the bus, and we would start our path walking around the school campus. And I think I was just so afraid that if I wasn't there when they got off the bus, that they would forget that I was their friend and they would forget to look for me. I was so nervous, and I just was so happy to have friends. So this friendship went on for a few months, and I was actually starting to feel quite relaxed. We had our routine, and things seemed really, really good. So one day I go to school early, and I'm waiting for my friends to get off the bus, and they step off the bus and they walk past me. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I missed hearing them say hi. They must have said hi. So I start following them, and eventually they go into the girls' bathroom. So I followed them into the bathroom, and they go into one of the stalls, and I'm like, oh my God, I can feel my face flushing. I can feel this like tenseness in my chest. And a few minutes later, they come out of the stall and they hand me a note and they walk out. So here I am standing in this bathroom by myself, holding this note, terrified to open it, but I do. So I read the note and it says, Barb, stop following us. You are so annoying, you effing bitch. Stop following us, you loser. It was signed Barb and Nancy. And Nancy actually wrote her own name on the bottom, which just, I don't know why, but that was just this extra little dig. So my eyes are filling with tears. I don't know what to do. I walk out of the bathroom, I'm heading toward the classroom, and then I see them in the classroom sitting on their desks, snickering, laughing. I'm mortified, devastated. I crumple the note, throw it in the trash can at the entrance to the classroom, and I run home. I fall onto my bed and I'm sobbing, crying into my pillow. And then the phone rings and I hear my dad answer the phone. And I hear him say, no, she's not here. Okay, well, hang on, let me go check. So I peek up from my pillow and I see my dad in the doorway and he's like, oh. So he runs back to the phone and he tells the principal, yes, she is here. I don't know what's happened, but let me go find out and I'll bring her back at lunchtime. So I'm thinking to myself, I am not going back there at lunchtime. So I lay in my bed with my head in my pillow and my dad comes into my room and sits on the edge of my bed. I feel his hand in the middle of my back and he says, what happened? So I tell him my sad story and he listens very carefully. And then he looks at me and he says, you have to go back. And I'm like, I'm not going back. He says, yeah, you're going back at lunchtime, but until then, let's go sit in the living room. So we go out to the living room, fire in the fireplace, and we had a cup of tea and we played some Yahtzee and we just kind of let the time pass. And then all of a sudden it's lunchtime. I am just dying, but my dad had a motorcycle and I didn't get to ride on it very often. So he said, okay, fine, I'll take you back on the motorcycle. So something a little bit positive anyways. So we go back to the school and we walk into the principal's office and there are 3 chairs sitting there. And I'm like, oh my God, I do not want to see these girls. I don't want to be here. But I sit down in my chair and my principal, Mr. Black, he said, okay, I'm going to go get the girls. So out he goes. And then he comes back in with Barb and Nancy and they sit down. Barb is just one of those people that was just sort of too cool for school. She was unfazed by this entire thing, very smug, just sitting there. Nancy, on the other hand, was freaking out. She was extremely nervous, very, very upset. She didn't know what was going to happen. So we sit there and my principal looks at me and he says, okay, tell me what happened. So I tell him and I basically tell him what the note said and how I was delivered the note. And he looked at the girls and he said, is this true? And Barb looks at him and she says, no, we didn't do that. She's lying. And he says, okay. And then he looks back at me and he says, Barb, what did you do? Oh, my name's Barb too. So we were both Barb, a little bit confusing. He looks back to me and he says, what did you do with the note? And all of a sudden I remembered. I said, well, that note is in the garbage can at the start of the classroom. So he said, okay, I'll be right back. And now all of a sudden, Barb isn't quite looking so unfazed. She's looking a little more nervous and he leaves and he comes back and he's unrumpling the note and he's reading it. And he looks up at the girls and he said, I am shocked. I cannot believe that young ladies would write something like this. And then he looked down and looked back at me and he said, you know what, Barb? He said, you're actually so lucky. You are so lucky that you have figured out very early on that these girls are not your friends and you wouldn't want them to be your friends. And at that moment, my dad put his hand on my shoulder and I just felt this energy rush through me. And it was like an epiphany. Like I suddenly knew what friendship was all about and what I wanted in a friend and how to be a good friend. And I walked out of that office completely different. Gave my dad a big hug and headed back to the classroom. The next year and a half, I really didn't have any close friends. It was a very lonely time and I spent a lot of time with my family, but it was like I knew that I should be patient and wait for for a true friend, somebody who really is deserving of my friendship, and also that I could be a good friend too, and just have your back. So in 8th grade, I was lucky enough to meet my friend Marta. And Marta showed me what it was to have a true friend, somebody who always had your back and you could just be your complete self with. And I'm happy to say that Marta and I are still friends all these years later because she was a true friend. And that's it.
Woo! Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Barb. So
Thank you.
we if you're enjoying this, we know that the kind of things are tight for everyone right now, but we do ask that if you can, please donate. So these shows for us to put on even virtually do cost our organization to put on about $1,000 to cover the captioning and for the Zoom webinar, which is an upgrade that we have to pay for. And so if you are able to donate, we ask that you do, any amount helps. If everyone who's here was able to donate $10, that would help cover that cost. And anything above and beyond that always goes to the scholarships. So we want to make sure that the classes that we offer, that anyone can take. And actually, Barb and I think all of our storytellers tonight actually have gone through the Cap Story classes and have honed their stories to share them with you tonight. So if you're enjoying what we're doing, I ask that that you consider becoming a donor and support us, just like our sponsors, Capital Public Radio and the Collaborative for Communication Access via Captioning. And then those of you who are already supporters of Cap Story through your one-time donations, or those of you who are a monthly reoccurring donor, we appreciate you so much. You allow us to keep doing this work that means so much to us. So if you can, consider making a donation. Thank you. Our next storyteller is another student that started through the Cap Storytelling, our classes, our training program. Our next storyteller is Keisha Mello-Hall. So a little bit about Keisha. Keisha has a passion for justice and a tickle for comedy. Her favorite movie is A Secret. She loves Sacramento and hates bananas. Keisha will be sharing a story with us this evening entitled Manteca Idol.
Thank you. It really bothers me when people make jokes about daddy issues, because statistically speaking, it's mommy issues that lead to serial killers. And I can kind of relate because I grew up with a bit of a stage mom. For example, when I was 5 years old and had my very first tap dance recital, she was the mom who was on the side doing the choreography while recording the recital on a video camera. And then later that night, she showed my 5-year-old self the recording to go over the play-by-play of every step that I missed. But the shuffle ball change, it's just hard, okay? So Cindy, my mom, and I am not being disrespectful by calling her by name. My therapist just says that it will help with unhealthy emotional attachments. So Cindy really wanted me to be a star. She tried to get me into modeling, acting, and dancing, but I was like this shy little bookworm when I was a kid, so I didn't like performing in front of people. I just wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer. Cindy wanted me to be Janet Jackson. And it was hard for Cindy to get me to be the next Janet Jackson, and not just because I didn't want to be a famous singer, but also because we lived in this tiny agricultural town called Manteca. Now, if you haven't heard of Manteca, you're not alone. But if you have heard of Manteca, it's probably because of our water slides. But they were torn down 16 years ago. Luckily, though, in 2003, after the success of the first season of American Idol, we're talking about when we all watched, glued to the television, as Justin was happy that he lost to Kelly Clarkson. during that time, Manteca decided to put on their own singing competition called Manteca Idol. So Cindy came to me with this news, like, this is going to be your big break, which is a very high expectation for something that was being put on by the Manteca Boys and Girls Club. But Cindy was certain that this was going to jumpstart my Janet Jackson career. Now, at the time, the idea of getting up in front of strangers by myself and singing was terrifying. But to that, Cindy just told me that this could help me gain confidence, to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, which was a lesson that I didn't feel like learning when I was 12. But then my dad told me that Cindy was also making him do the competition, so it could be fun to have like a father-daughter thing going for us. Now, my dad is this magical and charismatic creature who can convince anyone to do anything while also instilling in them the belief that they can do anything. And also, he's a karaoke legend in the 209. From Manteca to Modesto, you go into a karaoke bar and they know who Kevin is. So my dad, the karaoke god and my personal hero, manages to convince me to just go through the auditions at the Boys and Girls Club. So we do, and we both make it to the live shows because everyone did, only like 30 people auditioned. So now we get to perform live at Kelly Brothers. Kelly Brothers was the hot spot in Manteca. Imagine an Applebee's. Now make it 2 stories and take out absolutely everything except for the creepy clown memorabilia. And that was Kelly Brothers. It was a staple in Manteca and I loved it. So Manteca Idol was hosted on this tiny stage on the 2nd floor of Kelly Brothers. And the 2nd floor would just be packed with 50 of Cindy's closest friends, leaving everyone else to watch from down below, which was more fun anyways, because that's where you had your main bar, the arcade, and a magician. Not even kidding, Kelly Brothers had a resident magician who would make free balloon animals. Hotspot of Manteca. So that first week of the singing competition, we're asked to do an R&B song. No sweat. My dad sings a little Brian McKnight, I do a little Alicia Keys, and we move on to the next round. So we're given the week by week list of the different themes. And at that point, Cindy's like, okay, it's time to get serious. Since my singing voice isn't as strong as my dad's, Cindy decides that I need more of an oomph factor, i.e. I need costumes. For example, for the 70s themed week, she puts me in this giant afro wig through which I cannot see, and I'm doing my best Foxy Cleopatra impression while singing Ooh Child. Then for 60s week, Cindy puts me in a black turtleneck with a black leather jacket and a little black cap. It's possible that she was going for like a beatnik aesthetic, but I looked like a 12-year-old Black Panther and it was adorable, but it didn't really work with my 60s themed song, which was You Can't Hurry Love. Regardless, it worked for that oomph factor and I would make it to the next round. So week by week, my dad and I are doing this competition together and my confidence is actually growing. And it really was a big deal for me because at that age, I had already kind of developed the super healthy mindset of if I'm not the best at something, then did I even do it? But with this competition, that went away. I was just having fun doing this, even knowing I wasn't the best singer. Because I mean, at school, the kids didn't know that I was doing this because 12-year-olds in Manteca could be kind of ruthless. So like by day, I was this shy little bookworm. And then at night, I was a star, just having fun with my dad. So my dad and I make it to the quarterfinals. And our theme for that week is country. This was not exactly a genre I was comfortable with. Keep in mind, this was back when the Black country artist Darius Rucker was still known as Hootie and the Blowfish. So I just didn't really see myself in country. And I asked my dad, like, hey man, I mean, what are we gonna do, right? And that's when I learned that my dad is a closeted country music lover. He already had in his arsenal this song called Sold by John Michael Montgomery, which is the countryest country song ever, but with these crazy quick fire lines. So it's really funky. For example, I'm sold to the lady in the second row. She's an 8, she's a 9, she's a 10. I know she's got ruby red lips, blonde hair, blue eyes. I'm about to bid my heart goodbye. So my dad was set with that. I, however, had to spend hours in front of the TV watching the country music channel because YouTube wasn't a thing yet. So after hours in front of that TV, I eventually stumble upon this little known Grammy-winning country artist named Martina McBride. And she had this song that was just right up my alley. It was funky, it had a great beat and fun rhythm. It was called When God-Fearing Women Get the Blues. And at 12, I had no idea what it was about, but I loved it. There were lines like, call the boys downtown at Neiman Marcus, tell them lock up them high-heeled shoes. Again, I was 12, so I had never worn high heels at that point. And also I lived in Manteca, so I didn't know what Neiman Marcus was. Regardless, I had my song, and once again, Cindy was ready with the oomph factor. She teaches me this 2-step in choreography with a few shuffle ball changes in there. She's got me a cowboy hat, some cowboy boots, and a little piece of straw for me to chew on just to like really sell it. So country night arrives, and I'm feeling nervous as my turn approaches. My dad tells me, hey, just go out there and have fun. Cindy says, have so much fun and win. So after that pep talk, I was ready to go. My name is called, and I go out on the stage in my cowboy boots, my cowboy hat, my little piece of straw. The music starts, and I start singing with like a little manufactured twang. I start really getting into the song and my 2-stepping. And then about halfway through the song, where I have this really nifty turn that I do, I plant my heel and I twist, but this is the first time that I've ever worn those cowboy boots. And it turns out they were a little too big for me. So as I spin back around, I just fall to the ground in front of everyone. And in that split second, I'm feeling so embarrassed. I'm feeling like a failure because I had practiced so hard. I was ready for this. But then I just look up and to the side, and Cindy's there doing the choreography. So I'm able to bounce right back up, figure out my place, and finish the song. Then I get to watch my dad just blow everyone's minds with his country song, which I'm not even kidding, to this day. It's so good that he still gets people asking him to sing this song at karaoke bars. But anyways, at the end of the night, we find out that my dad has made it to the next round, but I did not. And I was devastated because I was having so much fun doing this with my dad. And I really thought that with all the gimmicks I was thrown out there, that I actually had a chance at being a finalist with him. But again, even at 12, I was already an expert at beating myself up and had that mindset of, well, I wasn't the best, so did I even do it? But that night I held my head up. I didn't cry. I just smiled my way through it. So I get to school the next day. And as soon as class starts, my teacher holds up the local newspaper, the Manteca Bulletin. And on the front page is a side-by-side photo of me and my dad with the headline, "Father stays, daughter goes." And as expected, the 12-year-olds were ruthless. They start laughing. They're making fun of me for losing to my dad. But again, I held my head up, I didn't cry, and I did the mature thing. I pretended I was sick and I went home. So as I entered through my front door, Cindy's there, not even upset or questioning why I'm home early, but just with the biggest smile on her face and the Manteca Bulletin in her hands. So I see that and I just finally break down crying. I'm sobbing, blubbering, as I'm telling Cindy about how mean the kids at school were to me, how betrayed I feel by the media. And sadly, I told her that I felt stupid for even thinking I was good enough to do a singing competition. So Cindy holds me and she lets me get it all out. And then she looks down at me and says, "There's no such thing as bad publicity." So Cindy actually went on to frame that Manteca Idol press clipping. People could come into the Mello-Hall family living room and see father stays, daughter goes for years, no matter how many times I begged her to take that down. Eventually, the frame did get lost in a move. But as embarrassing as I thought that framed newspaper clipping was when I was younger, today I actually do wish that I still had it. Because thanks to years of therapy and a really great book on mommy issues called Will I Ever Be Good Enough? I am now, as an adult, able to look back at that time and just be proud of my 12-year-old self, because I was terrified, but I got up on that stage and I did it. And I'm proud that not only that I had the courage to do it, but that I let myself just have fun with it. Yeah, week after week, costume after costume, song after song. I did it, and I think that's pretty cool. So, thank you for listening.
Woo. Yeah.
Yes. So, yes, and throw in the comments. We can't hear you out there applauding, but you can absolutely put it in the comments. So I think right now, I don't know if you see me or if you see Lisa. I want to introduce the executive director of Capital Storytelling, who right now is also the wizard behind the curtain, moving all the spotlights. So, and Lisa, I just want you to share with the folks that are here with us today, just a little bit about the CAP Storytelling. I know I mentioned the scholarships, but that's such an important piece of the program.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you so much, Betsaida. She's doing an amazing job. I'm just pushing buttons back here, so I have kind of the easier job. And our storytellers have probably the hardest job, actually sharing stories and being vulnerable, and they've worked so hard. So what you see on the stage this evening, I believe all of them, I think that's right, Betsaida, that all of them took part in at least one, if not two of our classes, and those are 3 to 4 week classes. And they show up and they workshop stories, they share them with each other, they get feedback, and then they all pitch stories to us. And then even after they pitch stories, they went through a period of story coaching with some of them with Betsaida, some of them with me. And yeah, so the mission, the reason we do this is to provide exactly what you're seeing in front of you, allowing people to stand up. I say stand up, most of them are sitting in front of their computer, but to share parts of their life with you, right? And what we really want to do at Capital Storytelling is always make this something that is accessible to everyone. So for our classes, there is a fee, but we have scholarships. Anytime someone says, I really want to take a class, I don't have the financial means, we have to date not turned anyone away. We want to continue to be able to do that. And the way that we do that is through donations. It's not free to put on these events, as Betsaida was saying. It costs about $1,000 to put on an event. Even though it's virtual, it still costs money. And some of that money goes to pay for our captioning. A lot of it goes to pay for our captioning to make sure that this is inclusive to everyone who wants to be here. That money goes to pay for our staff. We always want to make sure that our staff is fairly compensated. Some of that money will oftentimes go, well, it goes to host this in Zoom. And sometimes we have special storytelling guests, and we always want to make sure that they are also compensated for their time. And the money, so we need money to put on the shows and also those those classes are also not free, but we've always been able to allow people at times to have scholarships to take them for free. And that's because people like you care and give money that we put into the scholarship fund to allow anyone who wants to take those classes to take them. So this is one of those moments where, I come on and Betsaida does all the, the great hosting. Then I come on and say, hey folks, like, if this means something to you, if you enjoy being here, if hearing someone else's story, I saw people in the chat room saying, Barb, your story was so relatable. That's a connection. And that's something that storytelling does for you. And if you enjoy that kind of thing and you want us to continue to be able to do that, then how you can help us is by donating money to be here this evening. We allow you to register for free because we always, again, we want to make sure that we aren't creating barriers for people. But then those who are here who have the resources, we do ask that you donate. And so I don't know if I should hand it back over to you, Betsaida. I can also give you an update on, so far we have $130 in donations this evening. So we thank you. I can name a few people.
You.
Yeah, Mike Doyle, Sherry Reeser, Angelica Taggart, I apologize. Ashby Level, Sarah Agamahamidi, Sandra Hamill, Sarah Ukte, and Tim Smith have all donated this evening. And we'd really appreciate it. If you are not able to donate, we are so glad that you're here still. If you can, though, we would really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as Lisa was saying, that yes, we want you to be here first and foremost. It's important for us that we can share stories with you, but really, if you can and you're able to, please donate. Your money goes a long way to ensuring that we're able to continue the great work that we're trying to do and bringing and elevating stories in the Sacramento region and beyond, because some of you are even outside of the Sacramento region and you're still being touched by the storytellers this evening. So thank you so much for being here. We're going to go to our next storyteller. Actually, right before we do that, I want to let you know that if you're listening right now and you're out there, you could also be one of these storytellers in one of our next main shows. So the next show we have is in February, and I'll be sharing with you more about that later. But if you think that you want to share a story, like please do. We actually every month are doing story slams. And so that is an opportunity. Think of it as like an open mic, but for storytelling, where you can show up and have just between 5 and 10 minute story to share. You can show up to share a story, or you can show up just to be an audience member and listen. And I know some of you have been to the story slams. I recognize some names that were like going off in the chat box. So those of you who have been there before, you can help me, and you can write to share how much fun these story slams actually are. It's a lot more intimate of a gathering than we have tonight, which is really great. You really get an opportunity to share or just listen, but it's really just warm and welcoming, and that's really the goal. It's a wonderful opportunity to get together and really share personal stories, and that happens the first Saturday of every month, and I host those as well. So you already have a familiar face, so you can join us, and you can register at capitalstorytelling.com/story-slams. So we'd love for you to join us. The next one will be in December. So we'll see you, first Saturday of the month if you want to join us. I'd love to have you. So
Oh, and Betsaida, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I saw in the comments, some people were asking if the slams are virtual, and they are right now.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find a link to get into a slam on our website. Okay, take it away, Betsaida.
Yes. Thank you. No, everything right now that Cap Story is doing is virtual. The classes are virtual. The slams are virtual. Our live events are virtual. I just wanted to say, because it was raining today in Sacramento, and normally when I'm hosting an event and it's rain, I would say, oh, thanks for coming out and like braving the elements. But then I realized everyone's just probably sitting like in their living rooms, and that doesn't really apply. So I was like, anyway, hope everyone's nice and cozy. Yeah, we were virtual.
Everyone's at home drinking hot chocolate, hopefully.
I honestly, I do hope that for you. I hope that you're drinking the warm beverage of your choice right now. That's my sincerest wish. Um, so thanks, Lisa. Our next storyteller this evening is Alex. Alex Menjivar is a little bit about Alex. Alex is a transplant from Brooklyn, New York, and has been living in Sacramento since 2017. He wants you to know that not all New Yorkers have that, hey, I'm walking here accent. I was coached by Alex on how to do that properly. Alex is still looking for a good slice of pizza in California, and please don't get mad at him for saying pizza in California tastes like DiGiorno's. In his spare time, he enjoys hanging out with his beautiful fiance and their dog, Brooklyn. And Alex will be sharing a story entitled The Queen Goes to Queens.
Woo. Yeah.
So you don't know my mom, but my mom is very New York City. She's been living there since the 1980s. So she pretty much knows the city like the palm of her hand. I remember being young and I would ask my mom, hey mom, like, how do I get to Sunset Park? And she'd just be like, mijo, just take the Q train, take it to Atlantic Avenue and transfer to the N train and you'll be there in no time. Other times I'd be like, hey mom, what's the fastest way to get to Bay Ridge right now? And she'd tell me like, just take the B36 bus, take it to 86th Street, transfer to the B4, and you'll be there in like 15, 20 minutes. So to me, she always had this confidence on how to get places. This lady walks more than anyone else that I know. Or there was this one time, I remember being super young and she was just like, hey, look, do you want to go out and get food? And I was like, yeah, let's go. So we got ready, putting on my coat. And as we're walking out the house, she was like, okay, we're gonna walk there. And I just remember being shocked. And I was just like, what do you mean walk? Like, why can't we just take the subway? Why can't we just take the bus? Mind you, we were gonna walk to Crown Heights and it was like an hour and 20-minute walk. I was like, I'm not walking an hour and 20 minutes. And I remember just complaining. And I was like, why can't we just take the subway or take the bus? And she would tell me like, if we take the subway, we take the bus, we can't enjoy this beautiful day. We can't enjoy these neighborhoods. So just knowing that now being older, she loved exploring. And this one other time when I was super young, she had her favorite bakery in our neighborhood and they had closed down and she came home. She was like super bummed. She was like, they closed the bakery, why? And they're turning it to a juice bar. So I had to explain to her that our neighborhood is being gentrified. So knowing all of that, I remember I was like 12, 13. I had found out that my mom had never been to Queens. And to me, this was like super, super shocking. Just because if you don't know where Brooklyn is, Brooklyn's right here. Queens is legit right here. So as a kid, I never understood why hasn't this lady been to Queens? Like she's even been to Staten Island, and to get to Staten Island, you have to get on a freaking boat. But the universe works in a very funny way. I ended up going to college in Queens. I went to St. John's University. My school was in Flushing, and I ended up falling in love with Queens. Queens is one of the more diverse boroughs in all of New York City. You have like a huge Central and South American population. You have people from Guatemala, you have people from Peru, Panama, Venezuela, Colombia, and you also have a giant Middle Eastern population. So when I learned all of this, I was like, yo, my mom would love Queens. She would love the food, the music, the culture, especially since she's very into like her Salvadoran culture and she loves learning about other people's cultures. So all throughout college, I was like trying to convince her, and she would always say no. So in those in the years that I was in college, she didn't even go to visit me, not even once. So after I graduated, there'd be Saturdays. I would tell my mom like, "Yo, let's go to Queens," and she'd always say, "No, está muy lejos," meaning it's too far. Until one day, I saw that the Spanish channel Univision, they were going to have it was a Latin American festival, a Latin American Heritage Festival at Flushing Meadows Park. So I was like, okay, this is probably my best chance. So I continued reading about the event, and they were going to have there were going to be a couple of telenovela actors signing autographs. And then when I saw Eduardo Yanez, one of my mom's favorite telenovela actors, like this guy is like Mexican heartthrob. She would watch all of his novelas. Like I remember being a kid and just seeing like one of those gossip magazines, and he was like shirtless on the cover. Like the thirst was real. So I remember going to my mom, and I was like, hey, like there's this festival going, like this Univision festival happening at Flushing Meadows Park. And my mom was like, eh. But the second I mentioned Eduardo Yanez, she was like, oh, hell yeah, let's go. Like, I'm going to go meet my future husband. So I was like, all right, sweet. This guy, like, legit is the reason why she's going to go to Queens. So the day finally came, and we got ready. And this day ended up being one of the windiest and coldest day of the year. But that didn't stop us. We got ready. We got on the subway, took our 2-hour trip to Flushing. So I remember getting off the train, and the first thing you can smell is all of like the charcoal and the wood. And then you can smell the carne asada and all this different food, like smells. And it was like, that's like, was such a memorable thing for me, like just coming out of the subway. And then we started walking, and you just hear music, you see different groups playing like the drums and different instruments. But because we were in the 2-hour train ride, I was like, we have to get food before we meet your future boyfriend. So I remember going to one of the vendors, and we ended up getting arepas, which is like a dish from like Venezuela, Colombia. And if you don't know what an arepa is, the best way I can describe it is it's like a gordita stuffed with like meat and cheese, and it's really, really good. So after we ate, my mom was like, okay, nothing else is going to stop me. Nothing's going to get in my way from meeting my husband. So we started walking towards we see this big Univision tent. So we start walking towards there, and then all of a sudden, my mom starts walking there, and like she's full Beyonce moment. The wind is blowing her hair, and she's just like this. And every step that she was taking, the cumbia playing in the background. But then all of a sudden, after that, I hear people yelling, and I feel this big gust of wind. And I look to the side, and one of the giant tents from like one of the food vendors had blown in the wind, and it started to tumble. And then I look the other direction, and my mom is running, like legit. It was legit out of like a scene out of Godzilla. So she's running. This tent is like right behind her, and I was like, "What is happening? Just move to the side, lady, or like you'll be fine." But finally, this group of guys ran to the tent. They were able to hold it down. And like I ran to my mom, and I was like, "Are you okay? Like, what happened? Why didn't you just move to the side?" And she was like, "I don't know. I just panicked." So like, okay. My mom was like, "You know what? Oh, one thing my mom, she made me promise that I would never tell this story, but here I am telling 96 plus people that this happened." But after this, my mom, she brushed herself off, and she was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go meet Eduardo Yanez, my future husband." So we started walking towards the tent, and when we approached the tent, we had realized that he didn't show up because of the weather. So my mom, like I looked at her, she didn't seem too bummed, and she was like, "You know what? The food was good, the music was great." So then I asked her, "Would you ever come back to Queens?" She looked at me and she said, "This is gonna be my first and last time ever coming to Queens."
Excellent. Yes, thank you, Alex. If you enjoyed that story, drop a comment because we can't hear your applause. Give it up for Alex. That's a great story. I love that story. It honestly reminds me so much of my mom. I don't know. I'm like, so I just super fun, great. Um, so we, I know Lisa already said this, but I just wanted to highlight that there are classes with Cap Story, and like I mentioned earlier, they are all virtual and online. So we'll be having another oral storytelling class. It hasn't been scheduled yet, but it'll be happening in the beginning of the year. And also, there's podcasting classes with Cap Story. So Lisa didn't tell you this, but she's a master podcaster as well, and so she teaches that class and can teach you how to produce your own podcast from beginning to end, and that is wonderful. And all of it that is happening virtually. And as we mentioned, there's always scholarships available. So there's lots of ways that you can get involved with capital storytelling if you would like to, and we welcome your involvement, absolutely. So what we're going to do is take a quick intermission, so that you have a chance to go refill that hot beverage that I hope that you're drinking, and come right back to hear our final two storytellers. Hey Lisa, what's up?
Hey, what's up? I'm excited that we're having a break, and I was gonna jump in and give you an update on our donations for the evening. So if people want to donate during that break, they absolutely can. We currently have we have $350, which is so wonderful. That's about half of what it costs to put this on. We super appreciate it, and just tons of people donated money to be here. And many of these were $10 donations, which is beautiful. So if you only have $5 or $10, wonderful. Some people donated more than that, $20 or $50. So Katie, Raven, Gurpreet, Sandra, Ski, Philip, Natalie, Marianne, Jan, Stephanie, Nicodemus, Cindy, Jane, Cam, and Mark all donated since the last time I told you about it. We would super appreciate the donation, just simply to cover the cost of this, so we can continue to do this for you folks.
Yeah, thank you so much for all of you who have donated. We really appreciate that. And you can go to capitalstorytelling.com/donate. So we got 5 minutes, and that takes less than 5 minutes to make a donation. You'll still have time to top off that tea and join us right back here at 8:05 for our next storyteller. So we'll see you in, right after Lionel Richie's walking on the ceiling, dancing on the ceiling. That's what it is. All right. So I hope that you enjoyed that quick little intermission. We're able to get that drink refill, make that donation if possible. And we're back to hear the rest of our storytellers. I'm going to check in with Lisa real quick. And Lisa, did we have an update for donations? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you see me, Betsaida?
I
All
can.
right, awesome. I hope they can see me as well. Yeah, we had some really generous donations. We currently are at $597. So we're getting close to, that's wonderful. It's amazing. We actually we had a lot of people to donate 10, 15, $20. A few people to donate a little more than that. And we had a generous donation of 100. So people are giving what they can, which is really beautiful. I'll read some names real fast to recognize the people who have been so kind. I can't remember where I left off though. So I'll start. Cindy, Jane, Cam, Mark. We had a donation from the Success Support Team, from Megan, from Juliana, Marta, Harry, Melissa, Lynchpin Services, Abby, and Catherine. And so we really appreciate it. We're getting close to being able to cover the cost of this event. And it's incredibly appreciated to allow people to share their stories. And whatever we go over above and beyond the cost of the event, it goes directly into our scholarship fund, which will help people be able to take the class starting, I think, in late February or March. We'll try to set up another class for people to take.
Yeah, and I saw in the chat box, I was hanging out in the chat box during the break. People were asking, so there is the oral storytelling, the 101, but there's also a 201.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Yeah.
want to share just quickly?
Yeah,
what those
absolutely.
are?
Absolutely. So the 101 is someone who is totally new to storytelling, and Betsaida usually teaches that. I sometimes teach a class of it, but Betsaida has really done a lot to revamp that curriculum and to really create just a beautiful space for people to come and learn how to share stories, personal stories. And then we have a 201 for people who have taken the 101 and they want to keep learning and they want to keep coming back and sharing stories. And I'm seeing people in the chat room saying February is way too long to wait. So I guess Betsaida and I will talk and figure out when we can offer another class. But we want to be able to do that. And we absolutely want people to be able to sign up and take it, and to be able to give scholarships for people. So if you want that to happen, we do encourage you again to donate so that we can allow everyone who wants to take those classes to take them.
Yeah, and if you're just, jonesing for some story time before the next official 101 class, come to the monthly slam. So December 5th is going to be our next one, and it starts at 5 p.m. and all the information's on the website. So that's a really safe space to come and to just try. Or just listen, and you'll learn some that way too. So there's stuff happening.
Absolutely. Come to the Story Slams. They are super fun. We just started them in August, and I think they've become one of my favorite things. It's super cool just to show up and people arrive and they share stories, and it's a really inviting space. And then afterwards, if storytellers want some feedback, we give them feedback. So it's also a little bit like a master class if people want that. But it's a really fun, caring space. So it's super exciting. It's all virtual.
Yeah. So it's really easy to jump online and you can, join us in your PJs. Totally acceptable. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Lisa. And thank you everyone who has donated. Again, a big thank you to our sponsors who have in part helped cover some of the cost of this, and then for your generous donation. So thank you to Capital Public Radio and for CCAC and all of you who have donated today and those of you who have donated before. We just are so thankful for your support. We really, really are. So yes, somebody said you can wear a top hat for the slams. Absolutely, that's true. If you want to be casual and wear your PJs, you can show up in a top hat. If you want to reuse your Halloween costume just so people can see it, yeah, we're down with that as well. Very come as you are, right? That's the vibe. So definitely, hopefully, we'll see some of you December 5th. So I teased it early in the beginning of the session about the next main event that we're having, which is going to be February 19th. And that is a QR code that you can scan with your phone if you have it set to that fancy setting, which I just learned about like a couple months ago. And that will take you to the registration page to sign up for the next main show, which is like I said, February 19th. The theme for that is a different kind of love. So I know February is notoriously a month for romantic love, but we just kind of thought let's talk about a different kind of love. When Lisa and I were chatting and kind of putting this story idea together, I was just listing the different kinds of love, and I was like, yeah, there's love of a pet, love of a first office, and I realized honestly like how much I loved my very first office that I had at work. Or love, yeah, love of a space, familial love, just different kinds of love, that we can highlight and celebrate. So if you have a story that's about love, you know non-romantic love, because we hear those all the time, we just want to celebrate all the different kinds of love that there are in this world. Please pitch us your story. If you go to capitalstorytelling.com, under the live events tab, there is a tell your story. If you click that, that'll give you all the instructions of how to email us your story pitch. So you just record yourself, an audio file on your phone or what have you, and send it off to us if you would like to be part of the storytellers that evening. So we are actively looking for storytellers. If you have something you want to share about a different kind of love, we'd love to hear from you. So our last storyteller of the evening. I know, I can't believe we're at the point where I'm saying the last storyteller. We've had so much fun. I hope you've had fun. Because man, this is great, and I can't believe we have to wait like another 3 months to do the next main event. But luckily, we have the slams, and we can still see, get that little storytelling fix. So our last storyteller this evening is Sara Nichols. So Sara is a healthcare advocate turned New Thought minister and blogger, where she shares unsolicited advice about politics, movies, and life. She lives with her husband of 30 years in Southside Park co-housing community in downtown Sacramento. And Sara is sharing a story with us entitled, No Accidents, No Mistakes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so my story, it happened when I was a young mom, or at least my kids were young. They were 5 and 6 or something like that. And although I had, opportunities for breaks and little trips with my husband, I hadn't ever gotten away from the kids and just had a trip on my own yet. Ever since they were born. And so I was feeling very desperate for it and like they were old enough for it to work. And I started casting about for like the perfect trip. What would be great? And my neighbor, Mego, who had formerly been called Meg, but had recently changed her name to Mega, was offering this workshop. And the workshop was inexpensive. It was on a weekend that I could do it, and that was good for my husband to be with the kids. And it was nearby, and it was called the No Accidents, No Mistakes painting workshop with yoga. And I mainly noticed all the logistical things about it, and that I had been doing yoga and starting to like yoga. And I hated painting and art, but I thought, well, I like Mego and it's a good time and I'm just going to do it. So I registered for the workshop and I headed off. And this is a retreat center in Lake County, just north of Napa in January. And turns out it's really a summer retreat center, so it's completely freezing there, but it's pretty and it's nice. And we get there and we do some yoga, have dinner, and then we go into this like fairly small room with wooden walls, and Mego tells us how we're going to spend the weekend. Well, it turns out that it's me and it's Mego and it's like 4 other students, right? And that's it. It's just small. And Mego explains that what we're going to do is we're using this kind of paint called tempera. And up until then, I thought tempura was a Japanese fried vegetable, but it turned out that it was also this kind of paint that that dries really easily. And so you can paint over it very quickly. And then we were issued this like white paper, that just goes up on the walls and is fairly flimsy. And we were told, you can paint on this paper all you want, butcher paper, and you can't crumple it up, you can't start over, but you can paint over anything that you don't like, and you can add sheets to it. And Mego was very excited about the fact that we could paint over and we could add sheets. And so at that point, it became obvious that as we introduced ourselves in the little circle, that all 4 of the other women were professional artists, professional painters, and they were coming to relieve themselves from the burden of their self-judgment around their art. And I was a person who basically flunked art in elementary school. And let me just pause to kind of bring you up to speed on that. Like, I am not exaggerating when I say that I hated painting and hated creative crafts. In 2nd grade, my teacher, Mrs. Forche, was, I guess you would say, sadistic in that she took most of the kids' art, as far as I felt, all of the kids' art, and when they did it, she would put it up on the walls. But with mine, she would crumple it up and put it in the trash can. Now, in benefit of adulthood and hindsight, it is entirely possible that she put it in a little pile or something and not in a trash can. But in my mind, it was in the trash can, and I was in the trash can. And I was humiliated by this, and I used to go home with stomach aches every day in 2nd grade, says my mom. And I don't really remember the stomach aches, but I remember being very unhappy, very lonely, and really disliking Mrs. Forche and that experience. And ever since then, this is the thing, I can't do art. I can't paint. You hand me a crayon, you hand me a marker, you hand me anything, and I am paralyzed. And so even as an adult in work situations, if somebody was doing like a team building exercise, or in my community, a team exercise, and they think the great way to do that is to hand out different little art supplies and we're all going to do something, I would just shut down or protest or try to talk them out of it. I'm not necessarily a quiet person, but it's not a good thing. So I suddenly realized, oh my God, I have signed up for my only time away from my children since they've been born, and I have chosen to do something I not only hate, but cannot do. Can't do. So I sit there in the room while these professional artists, who I may not have mentioned were also thin and pretty at a time when I was, still carrying mommy weight. Well, frankly, I've had mommy weight my whole life, but I was looking at myself with, great judgment, while these thin and pretty professional artists are just inspired. They're just inspired, and they're putting things up on the wall, and they're painting, and they're adding panels, on the first night. And it gets to be 10 o'clock at night, and I am just sitting there. I have not picked up a brush. I have not opened a jar of tempera. I have not taken one step towards, I have put the butcher paper up on the wall, but that's it. It's just sitting there. It's literally blank, and they are encroaching with their extra panels towards my spot, which I don't really think is a threat because I'm not doing anything. But it gets to be 10 o'clock at night, and I'm tired. My kids got me up early that day. I am tired, and they are just going, who wants tea? This kind of thing, right? And I just go, okay, I'm going to bed. I go to bed. I took a shower to warm myself up because it was really cold. Then I blow dried my hair against the advice of a little sign in the cabin to also warm myself up. And it turns out the electrical circuits in that place can't handle a blow dryer and the heater. And so that blows the electrical circuits out in the little cabin. And I have to run around getting that all put back on, which is hard because everyone involved is painting. So I finally get the heat back on. I go to sleep, wake up in the morning, more yoga, liked it. Breakfast, liked that. And the women are very nice. I enjoyed talking to them and everything, and they're wonderful. And I'm not resenting them, but I'm just feeling very less than. And I go into the room and sit there again. And I sit there and I sit there and I sit there. I sit there all morning. Saturday morning of my mommy me time, and I am sitting in that room watching them paint, and nothing comes to me. I don't do anything. And I am feeling like, I'm starting to feel really angry at myself for just how little attention and care I put into choosing my special weekend, right? I mean, all I do is, Mego's got a workshop and it's at a time I can do it. I'm just going to go. So I started to be, really angry at myself. I have blown this chance. I go to lunch. I go to yoga. And then I just blow off the afternoon. I can't face it. I can't go in there again. I go for a walk. I take a nap. I read, which was great. And I strongly consider I'm blowing off all the rest of this. Why should I sit in the room? It makes no sense. This is my special time. So I do the evening yoga, the evening dinner. I go back to the room. I don't know why. Honestly, I really don't. I'm sitting there. And I'm sitting there for a while, and it gets to be around, I'm going to guess, 8 o'clock at night. Everybody else painting, enjoying, getting tea. And I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking, suddenly occurs to me, I don't have any trouble creating. Like, if it was writing and somebody put me a blank paper in front of me and told me to write anything, I would write it. I mean, just easily. I wouldn't even give it a second thought. If it was improvisational comedy, it might not be particularly good, but you put me in a skit and asked me to do something, I would do it. If you told me, there's an engineering problem on this bridge, and put a group of people in a room and figure out an answer to the engineering problem, I have never, done anything to do with engineering. I don't know anything at all about it. I would try to tackle it. I would come up with something. It would be stupid. It would be useless, but I would come up with something. But here I am in this room and I can't paint anything. And then I think, well, if that's true, if all those things are true, where does all that stuff come from? Where would my engineering solutions come from? Is there not a place where I could get an idea about something to paint? And I asked that question in my head, and immediately, at least this is the way I remember it, immediately I pick up the brush, get blue paint, put it here, just a thought in my head. Well, I'm not doing anything else, right? So I go, okay, take a brush, open the blue tempera. By now I've watched them all work with it for a while, so I know, you squirt a little on down here and you swirl it and you do that nice blue. And then I get more blue, keep doing it, keep doing the blue. And then I get the blue is like some water thing, and I'm just following instructions. Continue blue, continue blue, continue blue. Then I get green or brown, and a tree is coming out of the blue, and a tree is coming up out of the blue, and it's just becoming a tree. And I'm just slash here. I'm literally, it's like painting by numbers. It is that level of detail I'm being given, take your brush, put a green stroke here, do this, do that. So I'm just following instructions. Then it gets to the top of the paper and I have to get another piece of butcher paper and put it on top. So I do that. And then these fish come out. These two giant fish that are like tropical fish with multicolors, right? Those round kind like that, where the lines come like this, and I'm making them. And then the fish are kissing. They're like totally making out at the top of this tree on top of this water. And there are all these panels and I am totally into it. And the rest of the women are like going to bed and I'm still in the room. I'm still in the room painting, and I'm painting and it's 1 a.m, it's 2 a.m. I don't know how late I painted, but I mean, I stayed up so late creating this thing. Finally get to sleep in. Almost missed saying goodbye to everyone. I think I missed breakfast, which is not common for me. And I am like back in the room the next morning, finishing. They've all finished. They're stacking it up. They're hugging, they're talking about their next art show. And I am, and getting everyone on each other's emails and mailing lists and everything. And I am finishing this thing. The whole retreat center, wants to turn around for the next group to come in, and we had to get our stuff out of our rooms and everything. And I'm like frantically cramming in my last moments with this masterpiece that I've created. And the thing is, I shouldn't even mock that because I really love it by this time. Like, I really love it. Like, it's so beautiful. And I cannot even begin to imagine that I could create something that out of paint that I would think was beautiful. So I remove the butcher paper, I put it in the car, I drive home to Sacramento, and I make a decision that I want it up on the wall. I want it up on the wall. But the thing is, it's huge, right? It's multiple pieces of paper, and it's not a canvas. It's pieces of paper. And so there's only one place in our entire house that it could possibly hang, and that is the stairwell of we're in a narrow townhouse in downtown, and it's 2 stories, and the only wall that has any space for it all is in this stairwell. And so I don't exactly discuss this with my husband in any way. I may have asked if he was cool with it being there, but then I have to go to this museum quality framing shop in order to be able to have them custom make a frame for these pieces of paper. And it turns out there's one in my neighborhood who knew. I had never noticed it. And the 2 women who run this, who are measuring it and giving recommendations for the custom frame, which, because it's custom and because it's made out of plexiglass and because it's huge and because it's museum quality, it turns out to be very, very abundantly priced. And I don't believe I ever mentioned that exact figure to my spouse. And so they are looking at the art and they're looking at the expense, and they say, this is a very raw piece. And the other one says, yes, it has a real childlike quality. And I have to keep myself, I don't feel hurt at all by this because I'm not an artist, right? I'm not an artist at all. And I love it, which is amazing. It's amazing that I don't feel hurt and that I love it. And so the abundant compensation occurs, that the piece is, I see that my husband is confirming that I never mentioned this item, the cost. I take it home and even have to pay a neighbor who's very handy with these things to install it in our stairwell, right? Because it's like an installation, and he puts it up really beautifully. In fact, he didn't like that it was slightly off kilter, and he wanted to fix that, and I wouldn't let him. But it's up there. and there it is. And I just love seeing it. And then a few days later, our little daughter comes in and says to me, "Mommy, your painting is changing the whole house." And I say, "Really? Why is that?" And she says, "Because you couldn't paint, but you painted. So it's telling everyone in the house they can do things they don't think they can do." And that really is the effect it had on me. I don't know if it had that effect on anyone else. It seemed to have that effect on my daughter that moment. But the truth is that from that moment on, I realized that I actually had a reliable place that I could access that would give me solutions to anything. That there was nothing that I couldn't find a way to do or get information for. And it changed my life.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, beautiful, and you can throw it in the in the chat. Um, that is so lovely. Um, I can't believe that this is we've come to the end of the
Yeah.
evening, and I've had such a lovely time. Yeah, we'll have storytellers. Why don't you join us? We'll give it up one more time for all our storytellers this evening. You can have your cameras on. So as they join, I'll say hello. So and then just in the order that we shared the story. So Barb Todd, Keisha Mello-Hall, Alex, Menjivar, Vita Doria, and Sara Nichols. Thank you so much one more time, all of our incredible storytellers, for sharing their very personal and true stories. Um, Again, I'm Betsaida LeBron, Lisa Cantrell here as well. We had just an incredibly fun time. I hope that this is not the last time that we see you. Please know that Cap Story has lots of events happening right now. Everything is virtual. Once it's safe to do so, to come back together in person, we will. Because storytelling is just like such a powerful thing, and when we can be in the same room, it's even better. But it's pretty cool how it translates over Zoom, which has been wonderful to realize. So thank all of our incredible storytellers. Really appreciate every single one of you for sharing. For those who have come tonight in our audience, we thank you so much. Once again, huge thank you to our sponsors at Capital Public Radio and the Collaborative for Communication Access via Captioning, who helped provide the closed caption tonight. Yeah, I think that, again, things that are happening next month, right? Every month is a story slam. We'll have our next main live event in February. Please consider pitching your story. For those who are the storytellers, what would you recommend sharing your story to people who are out there thinking about it? Anybody?
Yeah. Do it.
Keisha, I saw you
Definitely.
unmuted. I was like, yeah.
That's all I had to say. Do it. Yes, everyone. Especially through the classes. Very rewarding. Yeah. Thank you guys.
Oh yeah, the classes are great. They're amazing teachers.
Well,
And with it virtual, you can be from anywhere.
That's true. We're open. I mean, we're capital storytelling, but we're worldwide in this moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
We're every capital now.
Yes. And also the non-capitals, not every light has to blink in that wooden it's a callback to Vita. So, thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you get on with the rest of your evening. We're so thankful to have you here. We hope that you have a story-worthy weekend. And until we see you next time, bye, everybody. I'll play us some music while we get out, but it'll take me a second. It always does.
Bye, folks.